Hello, hello. Today on Yoga with Paige, I answer what you have asked over this past week on YouTube, on my various other social medias. I was asking you to give me some questions that may have been on your mind recently, whether it be yoga related or personal related, as we start to open up a discussion here more and kind of move away from one of the limbs, the asana limb of yoga, and kind of dive deeper into some other limbs. So we're going to get the ball rolling here very shortly. These questions are going to be in no order of importance. They're kind of random all around. I think there's about 8 or 9. So we will just be having a fun little Q&A, kind of a get to know me, get to know what I think about some different aspects of yoga, and we can get rocking and rolling. So the first question I was going to answer was about struggling with consistency. And boy, if I know about struggling with consistency, I know. This is one of the areas in my life that I think I struggle the most in every area, consistency. And it is the one thing that builds up your life. Your small daily habits make up your entire life. So this is a really, really important question and is often one that people struggle with, especially when first forming your yoga practice or if you've gotten away from it for a little bit. So I have a few tips for you. And my first 2 or 3 are just about your space. So if you can, I always have my mat out, but I am blessed to have a big room where I can leave all my stuff here. If you have a space, even if it's a really small space by your bed, to help you keep your mat out if you can, and it'll help you just jump on it. It takes one less step away from having to roll out your mat and set up your area. Even that little step can help you. Which brings me to my next little point is making a space for yourself, no matter where it is in your house, even if it's just a little corner that when you practice, maybe you face usually that way and that's what you can look at. Find something that makes you feel grounded, makes you feel calm. I put some artwork up on the walls. I had someone come in and help me decorate this little room because it was so white and it kind of freaked me out when I was practicing in here. And now every time I look up and around, all I see are greens and nature, leaves, flowers. I love that sort of thing. It really grounds me, makes me feel more creative and inspired. So if you can set up your area with things that you like, maybe some decorations, some scented candles, maybe make a little altar for yourself, anything like that that makes you want to come into the space, anything that makes you feel inviting and makes you feel like you are at home. And the next thing I want to say is to realistically, be realistic with yourself when trying to create a consistent practice. Number 1, consistency does not mean you have to do it every day. It does not mean you have to do it every day. Consistency can be, I want to consistently practice 3 times a week, or maybe 5 times a week. You don't have to do it daily, but just being consistent with maybe every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or 5 times a week for 15 minutes. Think about your own personal schedule in a realistic goal that you can set for yourself, that you're not kind of setting yourself up for failure. Don't overextend yourself and say, I'm going to practice an hour every single day. I don't do that. I know some people do, but a lot of times we're busy people. We don't have a lot of time to fit into every single one of our days, and that's okay. Don't put pressure on yourself to do that. Sit down with yourself for even just a few minutes and think about your schedule. Think about when in the day you could realistically practice, whether it be morning, maybe that would be easier for you before the kids wake up. Maybe you would like to do it after work as a little stress reliever. And then think about how many times you think you would realistically be able to commit to getting on your mat. And then try it out. And you can always switch it up. You can always move things around. Say you hit the 3-day mark and you think you can go for 4, then you can up your consistency. And if it's too much, you can dial it back. It is your own schedule you are making. And even if it's just 1 day a week, that's still being consistent. You can also tell yourself, sometimes this is the way that I get on my mat, is that you can say, the whole practice, I will just sit in easy seat or child pose, take it as more of a mindfulness meditation practice. And sometimes maybe you'll stay there, and that's fine. Other times, maybe you will want to just being on your mat, being in the space, being in one posture may make you want to move into some more. Also, if you are more of an in-studio person, sometimes that can help you build consistency as well. Either using the buddy system, finding someone who is also looking to reach this goal, whether you actually practice together, or you can just keep yourself accountable and kind of check in. Maybe you can do it the same days, or you just see how your accountability is going. Knowing that someone else will be checking up on you sometimes can get your booty going a little bit more, which also means if you want to go to a studio, maybe you need to sign up for a few classes a week to make sure that you know that you will arrive because maybe you prepaid for them, or just knowing that you signed up and people will see you signing up and not showing up. Maybe that will get you there. So there are different ways that you can build up consistency by kind of just finding your own sense of motivation. Which brings me to my last little point on this topic is think about your why. On days when you're really, really struggling to get on your mat, why do you practice? What is it that makes you want to practice? Think about that. Sit with that. Think about how you'll feel after you practice. And that might be motivation enough to get you there as well. So we had a question about the minimum amount of time you can practice to receive the physical benefits of a yoga practice. This person is specifically a runner, but I will kind of answer in a more general terms and then go deeper into the running aspect. So first, I want to say that yoga and its practice is a more longer, slower journey physically than, say, strength training or bodybuilding. In those instances, you are working on just tearing, like your whole entire goal is to rip your muscles apart so that they can build back up and become stronger. Whereas yoga, we can definitely practice yoga for strength and make that our whole focus. But since we're not using weight, we're using mostly our body weight. We're usually stabilizing our muscles and building them that way. So you're building all of your little muscles and all of your groups with your own body weight. So it is a slower, more gradual process. But saying that, I would say try to aim for about 2 to 3 days a week. It doesn't have to be a lot, depending on what kind of benefits you want to receive. If you're talking about flexibility benefits, I would try to maybe go 3 to 4 days a week if you can, but be realistic with yourself, because if you can go a longer period of time, say a year or 2 years by doing it twice a week versus 6 months doing it 4 times a week, you will receive better benefits with the longevity of your practice over the years than a short amount of time doing a ton and then stopping, if that makes sense. But I would say about 2 to 3 times a week, even for just 15 minutes. If you can stretch it to 20, that would be great. And then reevaluate how you feel after about a month. Maybe take about 3 to 4 weeks with 2 to 3 times a week, practicing about 15 to 20 minutes. Reevaluate how you feel. If you feel like that's not enough, that you're not getting enough benefit, I would try to up it to 3 to 4 times a week. But every body is different, and this does vary person to person. And in regards to using your yoga practice in conjunction with running, I would recommend probably running first and then using your yoga practice as a little recovery session. So we have yin and hatha and restorative yoga. Those are more slower yoga styles that would help you to kind of recover those muscles. But if you're looking for something to help you build strength and stabilize and work through your full body mobility, I would suggest vinyasa. As you build heat, you find some repetition in the movements, and it's a very fast-paced style of yoga. And then if you are practicing vinyasa, you can really make sure that you are stabilizing and focusing on the major groups that you use when you're running. So namely the core, you use those, the glutes, the hips, the ankles, the feet, mainly kind of focusing on the lower body, but you will tone and warm up the upper body, the full body as well. Which brings me to my next point. If you are practicing yoga before you run, which is totally okay, these are all different things just depending on your own body and your own practice. We have to find what works for you, uniquely you. If you're practicing before you run, I would suggest to focus on balancing postures to really engage those abdominal muscles and strengthen the core. Obviously, you use that a lot when you run. You're strengthening your core, so stabilize those muscles and really make sure you're working through the joints. Before you run, warm up the ankles, the feet, the knees, the hips, all of those joints. Really focus on more mobility practices than stretching. We have our next question, which was, what are the other 7 limbs of yoga? As I was saying that we are moving a little bit further away from the one limb, the asana limb. So we're going to just very briefly go through the other 7. So the first are the yamas, which are 5 ethical, kind of codes of conduct when you're dealing with the external world. So the first one is asteya. We have non-violence. Satya, which is truthfulness. And I'm trying my best to pronounce these, but I'm still working on the pronunciation. So if I butcher these, I am very sorry. Trying my best. It's a learning process. We're all learning together, right? We have asteya, which is non-stealing. Brahmacharya, abstinence, and aparigraha, which is non-possession. So we will be diving into some of these a little bit later on, but that's kind of all we're going to say about the yamas. Basically, just the way that you conduct yourself with the external world, which brings you into contrast with the niyamas, which are 5 internal codes of conduct for how you treat yourself. You have sucha, cleanliness, santosha, contentedness, the tapas, which are like the heat, the energy, svadhyaya, self-study, and this one is really, really hard for me to pronounce, so bear with me here. Ishvara pranidhana, and this is your surrender to kind of the higher power, higher being, whatever you believe in for that. We have the third, which most of you know, we kind of practice here on Yoga with Paige as well as asana, is pranayama, which is the breath control. Pratyahara, which is the withdrawal of senses. So you are consciously withdrawing from the outer senses of the world. This is usually used in forms of meditation. There's a few different kind of levels as you reach deeper and deeper into your meditation practice. And this is the kind of lowest level of it, where you are simply just kind of withdrawing from the external world and attempting to go within. We have the next level up, which is dharana, concentration. So that's when you're focusing your meditation on a singular object, say the navel, or an object that you can see, like a leaf if you're outside and you're meditating. Sometimes I meditate in nature, just staring right at a tree. And then the last one is dhyana, which is your highest sense of meditation. There is one more. It is called samadhi. It is the pure concentration of kind of all of those combined. Once you reach dhyana, the third level, you kind of come into this state of pure devotion and pure oneness with everything. It's kind of the utmost level we can achieve at that state of meditation. I do not know a ton about that as of yet, so we can dive into that one together. This next one you can skip if you are not into the feet. I just had a few quick questions about them. My foot size is an 8 to 9. No, I do not know why my toe scrunches over on the right foot. I don't really wear heels. I only wear them about 1 time a year, and I really don't wear a lot of shoes. So it's not because of that. So there you go, all you feet people. The next question, I am about 5'7". I used to think I was 5'6" for the longest time, but I don't know if I just grew or if I was measuring myself incorrectly. I'm definitely 5'7". And next we have benefits of exercises for flat feet, which a lot of people do have flat feet, especially depending on where you live in the world. I know a lot of people in Africa tend to have flatter feet. it can be a cause for many, many different reasons. I think we're all actually born with pretty flat feet, and then your arches start to form around like 5 or 6, somewhere around there. But if you have really, really flat feet, you are actually putting a lot of pressure on all of your other joints. So there are a lot of benefits of exercising your feet out. Because if your feet are really, really flat, you're not using this part of your foot to support. So all of your weight is going up onto your ankle, your knee, even up to your hips and your lower back. So if you have chronic lower back pain or pain in some of your joints, and if you have flat feet, that might be the root cause of the issue, because remember, our feet are our foundation. So if we're not taking care of our feet, then the rest of our body is going to suffer, unfortunately. So there are a few exercises you can do. There are more. We have the heel raises, we have toe raises, you have arch raises, basically just raising different little parts of your feet and working through them, trying to create some more structural muscle in the arch. That's all you're basically trying to do, is add some muscle to make up for the lack of structural stability that you don't have. A lot of benefits. I do have a few shorter videos on working through the feet and the ankles, so I can link them down below. I know I had actually a few questions about this. And I did have a question on a personal part of my journey, and that was what inspired me to begin my yoga practice. And I will say, Mom, shout out to you, Mom. She did take me to my first few yoga classes, which I did not really like that much. I was like, I'll take it or leave it. I think I went to 1, maybe or 2 with her, and then a few years later, another 1 or 2. I was younger. I think I was in high school maybe, but I was a dancer all through my life. So then when that ended, I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I don't really know. I don't really remember exactly what it was. It was in 2019, 2018, when I just first started kind of practicing again. I think I went to a class and I enjoyed it. Might have even been at the gym, and I started practicing at home. I know I was living with my first boyfriend that I lived with at the time, and we were kind of having some relationship issues. I was kind of in a depressed state. I've had some issues with my mental health in the past. I'm a very emotional person. I have a lot of anxiety, and I didn't really know how to help myself at that point. We weren't in a good spot of communicating and talking things through, so I felt very alone and lonely. And something just drew me to the practice. I think it might have been the connection that I was able to feel with myself and the creative outlet that it allowed me to do. My home practice looks a lot more dancey and fluid and intuitive than the classes I usually teach on here. I do have a few dance yoga fusion classes, and that's kind of what my practice usually looks like if you've taken those. So I know it started from needing an emotional outlet, and it just kept growing from there. I saw myself, I actually started taking pictures and videos because I was amazed at being able to do arm balances like crow. I just felt strong already, like right when I first started, even though looking back, nowhere near where I am now, but that's the whole beautiful part of this process and this journey, that you get to watch yourself. And I especially invite you to take pictures, take a few videos, even if not with the intent to share with anyone, just for yourself. It is amazing how much you progress and how easy it is to forget where you started and where you came from. And it's so great sometimes to look back at the befores and the afters and just know how much it has changed my mental health as well. So my mom is really the person who got me into yoga, but I stayed with it and I really started to fall in love with it for the mental health reasons. I noticed it making me feel a lot better, and I was gravitating towards wanting to do it. It was like my alone time, and it just made me feel good. It made me feel good physically, mentally, just everything. And then COVID hit too. So I was practicing a little bit, a lot by myself. But then when COVID hit and we were all stuck in our houses for months, what else was I going to do? I was practicing for hours. I was just messing around. I was really having fun with it. And that is what got me into wanting to do the teacher training was COVID. So I guess one good thing for me personally came from COVID, and that was the yoga, the passion for this yoga practice, and me taking my first yoga teacher training, which led to right where we are right now. And our last question for today's little Q&A is, someone's looking for motivation to get back to their practice after a long time away, or when they're super tired and just don't have the energy to start back up with their practice again. So my answer for you kind of circles back to the why. I think this is a big part, especially if you've taken off a little bit of your practice and you've been a frequent practitioner for a while. Finding that motivation and that passion again the very first time can be really tricky. But I think it would be good to look back at the why. Why do you practice? What is it for? And help let that guide you to the mat, to reconnect with those feelings, whether it be feelings of security, safety, whether it be physical strength, whether it be anxiety, tension, muscular release. And think about, visualize yourself as if you've already practiced. Visualize what you will feel after and let that help push you there. And at this point, I really do recommend practicing with someone else. If you practice by yourself, sometimes it can be hard to motivate and push yourself. So at this point, if you're struggling to get back into your practice, I do recommend heading to a studio, taking in-person classes, or taking some videos online. We can practice together. So then you can really just focus on getting on your mat. It's as simple as that. Letting somebody else do the thinking, the planning, the teaching, and you can kind of just follow along, and hopefully you spark up that, reignite that passion for your practice. But also be gentle with yourself. I mean, life goes in phases, and your practice will always be here. Sometimes it just doesn't feel like the right time. And I'm a very emotionally driven person. So I feel like if there is a little time that you have stepped away from your practice, maybe for some reason subconsciously you needed to. Maybe you needed to step away so that you can come back with a fresh perspective, or that you can come back and learn something else. I don't know. That's where I'm at in this journey of mental thought right now, trying to balance the logic with the emotion, not forcing yourself or pressuring yourself to do something that truly doesn't feel like a good time or right, even if you don't know why that is. Just like right now, I'm kind of moving away a little bit from the physical aspect of yoga, and I think that's okay for me, even though that's what brought me here, and I still love it. I'm probably going to go practice right now, but that's okay for right now, because you can come back, you can dial it back, and then you can always dive back in. And I think that's also what makes it so fun. It's malleable. You can shape it to your life, your wants, your needs, your schedule, and it will always be here for you. And sometimes if you take away that stress and that pressure, and you just kind of allow yourself to be, you never know, you might just find yourself gravitating back towards the mat quicker than you thought you would if you pressure yourself. But also make sure to maybe start small. Just commit to 10 minutes. Say, hey, I'm just going to stretch for 10 minutes, just warm up my body. And it might kind of reignite that passion, that spark. If you are struggling to commit to a daily practice or get your motivation to get back on the mat, my number one tip is definitely start small. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's all it takes. It doesn't have to be anything super, super fancy or incredible to be a yoga practice. It's all about you and what you need in that moment on that day. And those were all of the questions I received over the past week. So I thank you for sending them to me. I thank you for participating in this first Q&A. And I hope I answered some of your questions. And I'm looking forward to the next subject. So leave any of your thoughts down below, any feedback. If I didn't answer deep enough, we can keep this discussion going, keep the ball moving. Or any suggestions for anything you want to dive a little bit deeper into for our next talks. I am going through and getting some more video ideas at this moment. But I had a lot of fun with this, and I think this is really fun to get to know each other. So I would love if you wanted to comment back. Love to know why you began your yoga practice and maybe what keeps you here, keeps you coming back, why it feels good to you. We all have such different and unique reasons that we practice, and I think that's so beautiful. But thank you for tuning in and joining me on Yoga with Paige today. I look forward to the next time we meet, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of the day.